Hi guys, and welcome to the Stephen King Sematary Club. We can finally put an end to the Tommyknockers today. I have taken a little while to get through the third part because I got so angry. I am using the Stephen King Library edition, which is what I've been using for all of my videos. Even if I have another copy, this is the one I'm using for this entire series of Stephen King Cemetery Club videos, until we get to the point where I quit being a member. And I had forgotten, because I only read this once. The other time I read this, it was a library book. So look at this. We have page 400, then it goes over to 401, 402 and 3. Oh no, then we get 402, then it jumps to 405. So then you have to piece the book together. Then we get 406. Here's page 403, right here, after page 406. Then we have 407. So basically, from 400 to page 434, I had to read several pages, then go backward because the pagination was incorrect when they laid out this book. And I forgot about it, but as soon as it happened, my first thought was, oh, I have a page missing. And then my second thought was, oh shit, this was a thing. Luckily, it did not go through the entire last part of the book, because I would have just given up at that point. Actually, I probably would have pulled a different edition. So, part 3. Called the Tommyknockers. The first chapter is called Sissy. So Bobby's bitch of a sister, Anne, she flies to Haven. She has a ton of metal fillings in her mouth, and as we know, this is one of the things that prevents the Tommyknockers from being able to get inside your head. So you do get slightly affected. Gardner seems to be the one that is the least affected of everyone. She arrives, and she is trying to get Bobby to go home with her because their father has died, and Bobby has been avoiding her calls, and she's one who always gets what she wants. So she wants Bobby for the funeral, and she also wants Bobby to just come home and stay. So she arrives, she feels weak and doesn't know what's going on, but feels something is very weird, and Bobby comes out of the shower and is so disgustingly alien-esque at this point. Like, she's virtually see-through, and a lot of her features are melding together, and her boobs are starting to become one blob, and she is shocking to see. So she sicks her new tentacle on Anne, and Anne gets put into the shed. Guard is starting to become even more aware of what's going on, and he takes a walk. He finds Anne's car buried in a gravel pit. He and Bobby are still working on unearthing the saucer, and they finally reached the hatch. So Bobby is trying to get into Guard's head. He won't let her. They're still friends, but Bobby is pretty intent on getting rid of him as soon as his usefulness expires, and he knows that at this point, and he's trying to keep her at bay. We get a ridiculous reference to The Shining. Bobby wants to celebrate getting to the hatch, so she calls the people in town who are the most central to the becoming situation, the ones who are kind of like the small government of Tommyknockers. And Guard realizes this is his final chance to take a look at what's out in the shed. So he sneaks out there, and he can't find the key. Quote, "So what was he supposed to do? Grab Bobby's axe and make like Jack Nicholson in The Shining? He could see it. Smash, crash, bash. Here's Gardner." Page 420. I thought that was a ridiculous nod to the movie, because Stephen King hates the movie. And it didn't need to be in there, and he didn't, I don't know, it's just a very odd choice. But there are lots of insider references in this book. So anyway, inside the shed, he finds Ev Hillman, which was the grandfather of Hilly Brown, the magician, the little kid, Anne, the sister, and Peter, the dog. So they're suspended in this green fluid, and they're all alive, and they're talking to him telepathically, and they're powering things. Their energy is being used. And there's a computer, and it has where you can type commands into it via your brain, basically. So he freaks out about that. He leaves. There is a journalist who's trying to get to the bottom of the situation in Haven. He's an okay addition to the story, I don't know. I wasn't invested either way. So Bobby and Gardner are they're the ones who are affected the least. So Gardner kind of has to go along with Bobby, and the other townspeople don't like it because they really don't like him, but they can't see a way around it. Like, everyone who's come out to help him dig eventually gives up because they get sick. So they prepare to go inside, and Bobby knows, through communicating with these aliens, that the ship has been sealed for 25,000 centuries. The Tommyknockers are grayish, transparent. They have snouts. They have 6 fingers and a big talon foot. They see a whole bunch just crumpled in a corner of the control room, and they had fought each other, and they killed each other. And then they go to the engine room, and there's hundreds dead in that room. They're all hooked up to the ship because they were using their brains to fly the spaceship. But they were also slaves to this ship. They have cables coming out of their heads. The journalist comes back. He actually gets into Haven this time. Last time he was stopped by a bloody nose, and he's taken out by a Coke machine that someone had programmed to become a thing that could be a weapon. It's really absurd. So then we have Bobby and Guard, and this is kind of their last almost human moment that they're gonna have. They sit at this kitchen table where they had sat a lot of times in the past, talking about politics and books and, you know, shooting the shit like friends do. So they're discussing what's gonna happen. Guard has grabbed a gun and has hidden this fact from Bobby. So he's sitting there, he's got a gun in his waistband. She has a photon gun that she has created via one of these inventions, and she tells him, okay, I will tell you about the Tommyknockers because you obviously want to know, but you have to take this bottle of Valium. And she gives him a bottle of Valium, and the idea is he gets to hear the story, and she no longer needs him. So this is like her way of being kind in the way that she kills him. So the intention is that he'll take the Valium until he ODs. Quote, take some more, Guard. As Jacqueline Suzanne may have once said, 6 is not enough. Page 482, which I really love because I don't know if it's an intentional reference to Once is Not Enough, but that's my favorite Jacqueline Suzanne book. It's so trashy. It's so bad. But I also do like Valley of the Dolls quite a bit, so it could just have been a reference to Valley of the Dolls that kind of accidentally made reference to Once is Not Enough as well. But, yeah. If you want me to do Jacqueline Suzanne discussions, I will do that. So then there's this huge forest fire that starts, emanating, of course, from Bobby's home. And we find out that it's because Guard has been caught and he is wielding a weapon that catches everything on fire. So, like, this whole kind of bad 70s disaster movie situation is playing out. People can't get in to fight the fire because they're getting sick from the air, and they can't get into Haven at all, so the fire is going to burn out of control, and it's just a whole bunch of people dying and getting consumed by the fire, and the ship raises up out of the tree line, and people see it, and they're taking photos of it. There's a guy that they're trying to get to. He's from the area, but he's on vacation in Utah, so they're trying to get him back, and he is someone who would be helpful in this situation because they're thinking it has to do with like nuclear stuff, or I think someone mentioned aliens, something like that. So he is being flown from Utah to Maine in a private plane, and he gets to the plane, and it's piloted by a guy who's wearing just plain clothes. Quote, "Are you Defense Department?" Tierney asked. The pilot looked at him with expressionless dark glasses. "Shop." It was the only word he spoke before, during, or after the flight. Page 493. So that's a reference to Firestarter, the shop. And there's another reference that will come later on at the very end. So in the middle of the forest fire in Big Injun Woods, the saucer takes off. And we find out later that Gardner is the one who is piloting this thing. So back to Bobby and Gardner. He shoots at Bobby and the gun misfires. He pushes the table into her. There's a big struggle. She bursts into flames. He's trying to save her. He's trying to shoot her because she's engulfed in flame from her, because she fired her photon thingy. And the telepathy that connects her to the town, everyone knows that she's burning up. She's screaming. It's giving them major headaches. And everyone knows when she's dead, when Gardner shoots her, because there's just, they can feel it. They don't hear her anymore. She's no longer a part of the hive mind. So the town descends on Bobby's place. And then Guard, like I said, goes into the shed again, and he gets a weapon that is powered by Anne, and she just takes tons of them out. He's waving it and she's powering it. So once he's kind of got a lull there, he plugs into the computer, and he uses Ev's power to try and save David Brown, the little boy. And somehow he does it. He tells the computer he wants David Brown deposited, and we don't know where. We don't know where, but he's hoping it was successful. And Ev, Peter, and Anne finally just, they die. They finally die. It's all so anticlimactic, and you kind of care about these people. Like, you care a little bit about Ev, and I care about Peter, but I'm so unattached to all of these people, all of these characters. So Guard keeps going. He goes to the ship. He uses the headphones in the control room to connect with a huge network of Haven minds, and he uses them and powers the ship to leave, to fly away. And he has to use so much power that it crushes the brains of most of them, the ones he is using. So Guard flies away. There's about 100 or so people in Haven who they start killing themselves, or when the government and law enforcement, all these people get into Haven, there are a whole bunch of shootouts, and a lot of them died that way, and then others are taken away, so they get shipped off to be studied. 26 Tommyknockers go to a government property in Virginia. Quote, "This installation, which had once been burned to the ground by a child, was the shop. There they were studied, and there they died, one by one by one." Page 556. I like that reference to Charlie, but that's pretty much the end of the book, and then we get a tiny epilogue where Hilly Brown, who is the kid going in and out of consciousness and feeling bad for disappearing his brother, he's still in the hospital. And that night, a nurse walks in, and she sees that there's someone else in his hospital bed, and she looks closely. It's another little boy, and she notices that they look similar. So she thinks this is his missing brother, and she sees that his feet are dirty from, there was some reference to the soil didn't look like normal soil, which is supposed to, remind us that he was on Altair 4. And he is curled up with Hilly, and the footprints start in the center of the room. They don't start from the doorway, like he didn't wander in and walk across the room. He, dropped in. So it's kind of a heartwarming reunion, and I feel, happy that Hilly and David Brown got to survive, but I just don't give a shit about most of these people in this book, and I think it's another book that probably would have been much better if it had been a novella, not a 500 plus page book. I do think a shorter book would have been better. And that's exactly what I think about Misery too. I think Misery would have been a good short story. I feel like this book could possibly have made a good novella. I'm not sure. But it is definitely not one that I'm going to read again. I did not find anything in here that makes me want to read it for a fourth time. 3 times is enough.